baby, what am I gonna do with you? Baby, sweet baby, what am I gonna do? That was an old cut by Barry White. As you get older and your parents are aging, what am I gonna do with you takes on a different meaning. What are you gonna do with your elderly parents? Some of you know, and act like you don't know. We're here to tell you about what you have to do. You have to cover the ham. Come walk with us. Brothers Crossing. Good day. Great day. Welcome, family. Welcome, Kai, to my Navajo family, to Brothers Crossing. And as always, I'm Roro here with Cub and Nando. We're here today to share some wisdom. But before we do, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, follow, or just show some love on our social media platforms. We had some interesting comments from our last show. Let's keep those coming. So, today we're here to talk about caring for your elderly parents. When I speak on the subject, or when we speak on the subject, I like to use the acronym HAM, HAM. 3 areas that you need to cover in order to have a shot to take care of your parents. 1, health. That's both financially and physically. Understand those 2 things. 2, assessing your own capabilities. That's the A. And then the M is Medicare and Medicaid. Know what they are. Because you want to help preserve your parents, you need to cover the ham. So, fellas, to get us started, kind of tell us your state of play and your current relationship with your parents and how this is a relevant topic for you. So, Nando, if you want to go first, tell us
No
where you
problem. We only have 2. So my father passed away in 2012. Cancer was able to get to him. My mother survived on her own, living in the Midwest until probably like 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, it was discovered that she has dementia, and it was forcing her to come out and live with me. So understanding the ham, understanding the health, understanding the ability and Medicaid and Medicare. I wish there was a book out that we would have been able to look at ahead of time versus stepping in the middle of this. And now all of a sudden everything's hitting you at the same time, as well as you're trying to take care of them, but at the same time, you still have to deal with them. They're still looking at you as the little kid, not the one who has grown up, they taught well, who's intelligent, who can make intelligent decisions to protect them. And I think that comes to them fighting their independence. They think that giving up to their kids, that they're giving up their independence. So dealing with it right now, I'm dealing with a mother who has dementia, so I'm trying to get an understanding. Cub, I don't know where you're at.
My dad passed away about a year and a half ago from cancer as well. But my parents had been divorced for many years, but she'd remarried. Her husband had passed away from cancer a few years prior. So she was living by herself. Um, for her age, she's going to be 89 this year. She's actually doing okay. She now lives with my brother in Georgia. They've got a little apartment set up on top of a barn that she lives in, and she lives her life up there. Nothing major medically going on right now, but I can only speak to when my dad was on his kind of slide of things that we had to scramble to get done before he passed. And that's something that, we could all touch on, things you need to have done ahead of time, not scrambled like we had to.
Yeah. And for those who listened to our last show, you know that my mom passed away on February 22nd of this year. So just about over a month ago. Yeah. And from the effects of dementia. And it was, she had a tough experience with it. But now my dad's still alive. He's an 86-year-old dad who's now a widow, and he lives in a senior facility. And so all of these events over the last month and what's been going on for several years, but now, not to be able to have a playbook, and that's what we're here to, these experience kind of brought to light the importance of this subject. So I want to get us to kind of share our experiences, and I hope everyone finds this educational. Everyone's going to go through it. So let's talk about, we talked about the acronym HAM, and we're trying to make it simple for those who are watching. The first part of HAM is health. Having to know the financial as well as the physical health of your parent. And Nando, you talked a little bit a minute or two ago about your parents looking at you still as a little kid, and that shift of you having to take control. Tell me what that's been like, and how did you address the situation as far as like health and learning that learning your mom had dementia? How are you dealing with it, both from the financial side, and what kind of advice would you give on that?
Dealing with the financial side and the health side, dealing with the way they look at you that's where I came up with the statement that they don't want to give up their independence. When they get to that age, what's the first thing that has to go? They have to stop driving. They had that independent where they can go anywhere, anytime they want to. Once you stop that, then they get a little angry, like, okay, how come I have to rely on somebody to go somewhere? Then when you're looking at the financial aspect, that's a conversation where our parents' age group, they really didn't talk about finances that much with you or the kids. They expected you to do your best, live your best. If you can go to college, go to college. If you can go and get a good job, find somebody that makes you happy and continue going. But you never talked about, this is what my decoration is. This is what I want. You never had to have that conversation until something comes up. And in my case, when the dementia came up, then we started to have that conversation. And that was a hard conversation because your parents look at you in one way and they're afraid to give up that independence, that all of a sudden it's like pulling teeth from them to get that information out. So when you finally get that information, it's probably going to take you a couple weeks. This isn't like a simple conversation you're going to have, because once they tell you one thing, you're going to start to discover more things when you're doing research, when you're going to the bank, when you're looking at talking to the doctor. You're going to start to discover more and more things to add on top of it. So when you're looking at the financial and the health aspect, you have to be communicating with their doctor. You have to admit to them, to the doctor, hey, I'm the one who's watching out for her. This is what I am seeing. Because I'll give you guys, for example, I called the doctor and told the doctor 4 years ago, hey, I think my mother has dementia. Can you guys run a test? She goes, Fernando, we give people at your mother's age group that. So I had to go through a conversation. I had to send the doctor all of the emails. I had to send the doctor the text messages. I had to send the doctor the stories saying, I need you guys to look at this. And then the nurse came back and said, we will look at it. Thank you very much. Because if nobody tells us what to look for, we would never look for it. So that's where I say, you have to get to know their doctor so that the doctor is on the same page as you. And on the financial aspect, it's going to take you a couple weeks to understand the whole financial aspect. And then the second thing after that, you have to figure out what you're going to do with that information. Once you get it, now how are you going to plan it? What are you going to do with it? So that's where it affected me in that manner.
Yeah, I'm to give people some guidance. I'd say, you know, you are correct that your parents still think of you as they're taking care of you. You're still their child, but it switches. And there's this old phrase that says, "Once a man, twice a boy." So you're gonna go through the phase where they were a child, then they become a man, but then towards the end, they become a child again, right? And I think that's where I think we have to approach things. But I advise everybody to have a honest conversation. And it's going to be hard. They're going to think you're in their business. Have an honest conversation before their memory fades. It's going to fade. and you have to be pronto, urgent. I urge everyone to get a power of attorney. Even at my age now, I should start thinking about who's going to be my power of attorney, both medically and financially. You can go to state websites for free. You can go, it'll be like an attorney general site or Department of Revenue, Department of Health, Health and Aging, Secretary of State. Just look for it for your state, or even go to like the Law Depot or eForms. Go get one signed. It's important because you need someone to take care of it. And the last point I will make, and then Cub, you can share your story, is that make sure that that financial power of attorney talks about insurance transactions. Have all the financial transactions, but there's this thing that the insurance companies are doing now, like, well, your power of attorney doesn't work because I was trying to, get my dad had an insurance policy on my mom, and I'm the power of attorney for him. And they're like, nope, your power of attorney doesn't say for insurance transactions. Make sure it says insurance transaction to make your life easier.
Mm.
That's the kind of the nuts and bolts part of it. But you had some type of experience at Cub, I believe, with the financial part.
Yeah, my brother and I went to visit my dad. He passed away in the middle of September of 24. My brother and I went there in very early June, and another brother of ours, their company, they get some free like legal stuff, which is a great benefit of the company he works for, and basically printed out and emailed to me, these are the things that you need to get done like ASAP, because he didn't have anything in place. And like you'd mentioned, you don't wait, be proactive and get these things done. I'll tell you briefly what they were. One of them was power of attorney for medical, like deed to the house, how all that's going to pass through to his wife. When he becomes incapacitated, do you want to do things to prolong their life? And we had to sit down and like literally read through this with my father. If you start to decline, do you want to be like
Mhm.
resuscitated or things to prolong your life? And he was adamant. No. He wanted it to like run its course, and he was ready. He was kind of like, I'm kind of done with this. When it happens, it happens. So that was difficult to go through that. But all of those things we were scrambling. And when you're dealing with someone that's dying and then you're trying to get all this legal stuff out of the way, it's not fun. I can tell you that firsthand.
And
So
it's hard to grieve because you're doing all this other stuff. Yeah.
it does. It's really difficult. So you need to be proactive. That's the best advice I can give to anybody.
And to reiterate it, go get your power of attorney signed for your elderly parents. And so, and then as Cov mentioned, part of that health power of attorney is the health directives. Make sure you have a talk about that with them.
Yeah.
The other part is to be honest. You have to know where all the money's buried, as they would say. You got to know which mattress is it under or pillowcase or whatever. You got to write down the account numbers, policy numbers, and the company names. And for those, we're in the situation where we're only dealing with one parent now. But if you start to try to rely on the spouse, they might not they might not remember either. Because some of people have been retired for years. And so they don't, they know we had a policy. I know this. We know I don't know what I did with my pension. That's the kind of things I was hearing. Urgent, go get your power of attorney. I mean, I would say that's number one. Wills are going to be a nice to have. And the other part you had mentioned, Cub, was about the transfer and death. I would say
Hmm.
put that on bank accounts. Make sure that all the beneficiaries are on any other like 401k retirement plans. Make sure everything is in place. It'll make your life easier because you don't want to go to probate. It's a lot of paperwork and time. That's that's what it is.
I mean, it was for us, it was, 100% of everything goes to his spouse. The children was like, we want nothing. Everything goes to her. And it all ended up working out. He had a little bit of life insurance that 100% went to her. So it made her, you know, her time now a little easier. Um, it was difficult.
So yeah, get that information, share with your siblings responsibly if you are the power of attorney, and have that done. Let's talk about the other part, assessing capabilities. Now, we all love our parents and we all think we can do it all, right? And but yeah, if you have a spouse, you have to number one talk to them because they don't look at your parents through the lens that you look at them through. And so I don't know, I know that from my experience, we try to have a 3 to 4 week trial period, and we had to be honest. And I think part of our experiment was we probably weren't as honest, and we were trying to suck it up. Oh, how nice we are. But then when the rubber hit the road, you know, my spouse didn't look at my parents the way I looked at them. And so I don't know if Nando, you could share anything on that about
No,
assessing your capabilities.
no, I would say it 100%. And I would also say you have a good heart because you want to take care of your parents. You want to be the one to step up. You want to bring your parents in. But what you really don't understand is, as you say, have a heart to heart conversation with your spouse.
Yep.
If
Yep.
they happen to decline, what is our thought process? If they're going this way, what is our thought process? What is our thought process of taking care? If I have to work, are you okay with taking care of them for 3 to 4 hours, making sure they're fed and stuff like that? We don't, we assume that when we're with our spouse. We assume that, hey, you're going to love this person like I do. But what the spouse doesn't understand, it's no give or take on their end is they don't know that person like you do. You've had 40 years, 50 years, 60 years with that person. They've just had intermediate conversations with that person. They don't know them inside and out. So the way you described who they are, they're not seeing that. They're seeing the decline in front of them. They're not seeing the happy times, memories you had, all the other times. So yeah, it's it takes a long, hard conversation. And what people have to understand is your spouse is not going to see your parent like you do. And if you can have that viewpoint going in that conversation, then there won't be arguments like, you're going to love her, you're going to love him. No, no. You just have to go into that understanding. They're not going to have the same viewpoint as you. So let's have an honest conversation about this. That's what happened with me.
And Kev, I don't know if I know you said your brother's taking care of it. Has he shared any experience about that, about how
Well,
how it
how it's going
impacts your family?
currently with our mother, I can, and Nando touched on it about their independence, and that's where he's having some difficulties. She lives upstairs, and she walks up and down these stairs, and this has happened twice where she has fallen. And you know, my brother and his wife, they both work; they're gone during the day, and they've come home and found her on the ground. The last time was a month and a half ago, broke 3 ribs, big gash over her eye, stitches, and he tried to, have that conversation. It's like, "You can't live upstairs anymore. You need to come down to the house, to the main house, and we'll figure it out." And she was adamant. "No, what about my things? I want." So she's stubborn. I see where we get it from. She wants to live up in her apartment and be as independent as she can be, though she after this last fall, and she may be coming around a little bit. I don't know. I'll see her this weekend when I get there to Georgia. But that was my brother was very frustrated, and his wife were about, how do you convince them, at
Yeah,
that
yeah.
age? It's
It
like,
is
hey, you need
hard
to
to
do this
convince
now.
them.
Like, who are you to tell me what to do?
It's hard. And I think, part of assessing the capability is how much of the hard work are you capable of doing? Like you said, Nando, we had good times. My mom is great. And then, I mean, you hadn't lived with your parents before that you moved them in, or think you can take care of them. But there are things that you don't know. I mean, I talk about like hygiene issues. I'm talking about having to entertain your parents when you want to do something different. They want to, want you to entertain them, and and creating a community for them. So those are things that you got to assess, not just I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to feed you, whatever. Things that you never would have thought you would have a conversation about, building a friendships and communities for them, and so on. So and the real talk, you have to, if you're going to do it and being honest and assessing your capabilities, know where the red line is. And when they cross the red line, what are you in your heart able to do? And I'm being honest. So it's tough to like put your parents in a senior facility because they don't want to. Nobody wants to be there. But there's lines, and there's your balance of your life, what's best for them, and then what they want. And there's lines that are going to be crossed. So what are you capable of? If you're not capable of making those hard decisions, I say you don't even start.
But that's kind of tough because we love our parents and we think of them as Superman and Superwoman if we had a great relationship with them. And our inclination is we want to jump in and help. So we don't think of that red line of having that conversation. We're like, I got you, mom. I got you, dad. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure you're fine. And everybody who's behind me is going to help. Well, that's our thought process. But that's why we're having this discussion about the ability and getting everybody to know this is the way I feel. How do you feel so we can find a happy medium so that we can give the best care to this individual that we can? But our first inclination is we're jumping in. Red
Yeah,
line? My parents ain't going there. Never.
exactly. Yeah, it's true. That's true. And that is the inclination. But I think that's, having gone through the experience, I think it's something you got to think about, especially if you have a family that you're trying to grow and grow, develop as well. So it's
Yeah, but
things you have to.
how do you, if you've got multiple siblings, how's the decision come together, like, okay, who's mom or dad living with?
That's a very good.
Like, Nando, how did your mom end up at your place? You have other siblings.
Well, I only have one, and I have an older brother that lives in Maui, and in this case, because of the house that I'm living in is a lot bigger than my brother's, my mother had a connection because I have some cousins that lived out here. So we have some family that live out here. The house is a little bigger, so I happen to she happened to choose that one. But really, when your parents are going to choose, so they're going to have an input on which one they
Yeah,
want to live with. And it's one that they feel comfortable with, that they don't feel like a burden. And how I mean that way is they still notice you remember when we were in grade school and high school, every time we got into trouble, the neighbors would call our parents and then the parents would know everything. They got a good feeling. The last thing they want to do is they know how their kids are, they know who their mate is with their kids, and they don't want to be treated like a burden. So they try to pick a child where it gives them the least feeling of being like a burden, because when they start to give up, they'll start to say to you, I don't want to be a burden anymore. And that's when you start to know, okay, we got to switch this up. We got to figure this out, because they're feeling like you guys can do better if I'm not here. But
yeah.
I, with the siblings, it's whoever, my thought is whoever they feel that they don't feel like a burden, that they'll go. Now, will they go visit the other kids? Yeah. Hey, go for 2 weeks. I'll go visit, but they just don't want to feel like that's what I think.
And I think this process that we talk about, assessing capabilities, if you do have siblings, maybe it is a group thought of assessing capabilities. Like, as a values family, I agree with you, Nano, that your parents are going to choose a person that they feel like they're not going to be a burden to. But at the same time, I don't think it's fair to be like, oh, one kid, just because they chose you, now he doesn't get to assess their capabilities. And the other ones are kind of just like, okay, they chose you. So I think it has to be a kind of a group assessment. And let's go to the last point. And this is one that, gentlemen, we're going to have to deal with too. And it's Medicare and Medicaid and understanding what they are. My first advice, I took one class and I think I still need to take several more. Sign up for a class about Medicare. That's the first thing you should know. For those who don't know, Medicare is going to provide you health insurance starting at the age of 65. You sign up, you have a sign up period starting 3 months before you turn 65, and then 3 months after you turn 65. And then that's going to be your kind of health insurances. And we can go into the different parts of the coverage as I turn these over back to you guys. But I never thought until I started taking care of my elderly parents, and my parents, I stopped calling them elderly, my parents, is I had to understand Medicare. What is that? Why do they have this supplemental policy? My mom isn't disabled, dementia. Now, how do we qualify for Medicaid? Because that's a program for predominantly disabled and poorer, lower income people. You got to understand the both. And then had to deal with both of them, I said, you have to understand it because I had to learn what Medicaid, what programs are available for her because she was disabled. And then there's Medicare. I still had to, you know, my dad was still separately they both was on Medicare, but, I had to deal with both of them. So, I mean, what's your guys' experience or what have you, any knowledge of Medicare, Medicaid, you can be honest.
Only thing I can tell you is that I'm closer to that age than the both of you. So when I get there, I'll tell you about it.
So you need to take a class then.
Well, tell me, since you're going to the class, you just tell me what's up.
Yeah. Have you had to deal with it, Nando?
I had to deal with the mother, and one of the things that we're educating the people who are going to watch this episode is the start of this conversation was talking about the financial health of your parents. So once you get with the financial health of your parents, that'll be able to guide you if they're going to Medicaid, Medicare route
Yes.
because of the fact that if they have social security and a pension, they may make too much money in your state. You have to do the research for this. You have to see in your state. So when the health of the financial and the start, when you figure that out, then this ending Medicaid or Medicare, you'll figure out which one that your parents will be able to work with and health, and you got to make sure they have health. Cub was just talking about how his mother falling down the stairs. If she has to go to the hospital, can you just imagine what that hospital bill is going to be without having insurance in place? So hopefully the health part of it, when you're examining it, you're examining what's her insurance, what covers on the insurance, what covers with the pills that they need, doctor's visits, as well as Medicaid or Medicare. Because right now in California, they are sitting here saying that if you're dealing with somebody with dementia and you're on Medicaid, Medi-Cal, they will be able to send somebody to your house to help you care for your loved one, whether it's a mother or father. And they just started that this year. So I don't know if that is in every state, but they're starting that here in California, trying to help you with that. Because again, fellas, there's 7 million people that we have in this old who are getting older who has dementia or something like that. They're saying by 2040, it should more than double. So
Wow.
we have to sit here, and as we're educating with our parents, we should turn around and do the same for us. Like Cub said, hey, I'm getting close. So can you let me know when he's being facetious, but it's really the truth. When you take that class, let me know because we should be preparing ourselves because we just went through it with our parents.
Well, I know the only thing I can tell you, Medicaid, to qualify, you need to be like poor.
Yeah. Like
You had like next to
$2,000 is about
nothing.
the average at
Was it
Bassett.
2,000 or less to
Yep.
Is that what it is? 2,000 or
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And so just to give a general briefing, so when people start to educate themselves, I wanted to kind of go in having an understanding of the lingo. So Medicare comes in different parts. Part A is where it covers inpatient hospital care. Usually it's about if you're an inpatient in a hospital, Medicare will take care of that for about 60 days. And you have a deductible you have to meet to about 1,100 on average. Part B is for outpatient stuff. It's going to talk about, if you had to go to the doctor to have a visit and so on, it's going to cover about 80% of your costs. And that's kind of general. And then there's a Part C. The Part C is like a private insurance package. Usually it covers Part A and Part B. And then there's Part D, which is for medication. So those some Part C programs cover Part A, Part B, and medication. Again, then to really reiterate, Part D is a medication part of the coverage. There's places like Humana who doesn't have like zero premiums, but there's some other places that charge you premiums. But for the most part, you don't have to pay for it. Then there's the last part, what they call is the Medic gap. So Medicare is going to be free, right? For Part A and Part B. But then Part D is optional. And then the Medigap is, remember I told you it only pays 80%? You have to get Medigap insurance to cover that 20%. So that's a supplement. And it's not cheap.
No.
My dad's paying like $500 a month just for the Medigap.
For the gap?
Yeah. So just some verbiage so you understand now. Like I said, I'm not a professional to understand. I encourage everybody to go take a class, particularly in Medicare, and then understand what programs like you were describing, Nando, in California or whatever state you live in. So that's to us. You want to take care of some elderly parents, that's the ham. You got to cover it to health, assess your abilities, know about Medicaid and Medicare. And we wish you luck because it's something you do out of love, like you said, Nando and Cov, but it's hard and stuff you didn't know about. And we're here to kind of share this wisdom so you at least have a little bit of a head start. And everybody's situation is different. Cover the ham. Any final thoughts, Jen? Man?
No, I think it's a great conversation to have with our brethrens and our sisters and the group who actually watch and everything, because it's happening, or it's going to be happening soon. There are some of the younger ones on here who start to see some different aspects of their parents. There's only so many times that they can forget the keys to the car. There's so many times they get into a car accident that they can't blame it on something's happening to them. So no, every now and then, this is a great conversation, and I think people get out of it from our different viewpoints.
There's a lot of heavy, it's a little long, but it's an important subject. And as we all age and our parents age, and we want to be able to share good times with them, we want to try to make it easier. And then in times of grief, we don't want it to be a stressful situation. You look left, you look right, Brothers Crossing. Good night.
Good night.